To reach Hurst Point Lighthouse, it's either a ferry ride from Keyhaven to Hurst Castle or a long walk along Hurst Spit. The lighthouse is located quite close to the castle. Hurst Castle was built between 1541 and 1544 by Henry VIII as part of a chain of artillery fortresses protecting key ports and landing places around southern England. It also guarded the Needles Passage leading to the Solent, Southampton and the naval base at Portsmouth. It was also used occasionally as a prison, and the most famous prisoner was Charles I, who was held captive here in 1648. The two lighthouses you see in front of you on the castle walls are decommissioned lighthouses, and these are the low light built in the 1860s into the rear wall of the west wing, and the metal low light built in 1911. Then it's a short walk to the lighthouse, passing the keepers' quarters, where they once lived with their families. At some point in its life, Hurst Point Lighthouse was lit by incandescent oil burners, but in 1923 this was automated with the installation of an acetylene lamp controlled by a sun valve. This was fueled by an adjacent producer plant. In the producer plant, it generated the gas using rainwater and calcium carbide, but this was decommissioned in 1968, and it was just bottled gas supplied by Trinity House from then on. The lighthouse was electrified in 1997, and at the same time a high-intensity sector light, which was designed to be seen day and night, was installed in one of the lower seaward-facing windows, and this was adjustable in case of further shifts in the sandbanks, and it used red, white and green lights to mark different channels between the Needles and the Shingles bank. And this is that sector light marking a safe passage between the Needles Lighthouse and the Shingles bank. Now you're up into the main lantern with the main light, and this flashes 4 flashes white and red every 15 seconds. The red coming from that red sort of plastic looking panel that's off to your right in the picture. And as you can see, it's 3 tiny little bulbs that wink on and off together. This is a better view of that red panel that the light shines through, and the green thing on the outside of the gallery was our fire escape system that was on all lighthouses. Basically it was a wired roped braked pulley system that once you clipped onto it and lowered yourself over the outside of the tower, it would let you down slowly to the bottom of the tower. And that's the view of the Needles Lighthouse across the Solent to the Isle of Wight. A better view of the keepers' quarters and their gardens. And a better view of the high intensity sector lights that shine day and night through this window below the main lantern. Now we're off to Anvil Point Lighthouse, built in 1881. Its light is 1 white flash every 10 seconds. The foghorn was 30 tannoy emitters, which was discontinued in 1988. The lighthouse can be reached from the car park within the Durlston Country Park. It is then a half-mile walk to the lighthouse. Also, the southwest coast path passes in front of the lighthouse. This was the old foghorn with its 30 tannoy emitters, now discontinued. This is the retired principal keeper, Mike O'Sullivan. He's now the attendant at Anvil Point Lighthouse. He's having a lens cleaning day and testing the systems. Note the emergency battery light above the main lens. That's on while he's cleaning to make sure there's no interruption in the light for the shipping. The original lens was much bigger, and when the lighthouse was modernised in the 1960s, it was removed and donated to the Science Museum, London. Inside the lens is a 2-bulb lamp changer. You have one bulb on as the main bulb. If anything happens, it automatically triggers the mechanism to flip round and the second bulb comes on in its place. The emergency light, as I said, is above the main lens. This is Mike just doing a test of the lamp changer to make sure everything's working before he puts it on properly and contacts Harwich, where all these systems are now plugged into, to let them know that the light is back on and normal. And now a brief look round the old keeper's quarters. This area was the watch room, where keepers obviously did their watches, basically for filling out logbooks and answering the phone. Glazing for the upstairs lantern, in case any breakages. And a look into one of the bedrooms, basically left for visiting personnel now. Maintenance crews, that sort of thing. And then the kitchen, which is self-explanatory. Just have a kitchen and a pantry. This would have traditionally been a place where keepers and their families lived. And the last place is the station battery room, and they're just emergency batteries to cover any eventualities if the main should fail and the standby generator fails. The buildings you see in front of you at Portland Bill were where the keepers and their families lived. But nowadays it is a visitor centre, and it's full of interactive displays, etc. In the base of the tower, it contains 2 diesel Revel compressors for the foghorn and 1 standby diesel generator in case the mains electricity should fail. There are also 6 air receiving tanks for the foghorn. They're the great big tanks you see against the wall in the background. On this first level up is the sector light, which shines a fixed red light over the shambles sandbank. It has what they call a 2-position lamp changer, so 1 bulb on, 1 a standby. So if anything happens to the main bulb, it automatically triggers the mechanism to flick round and the next bulb comes on. Up another level and you have the foghorn level, and this contains 2 more air sounding tanks and the foghorn trumpet which protrudes through the lighthouse wall, plus the station batteries. Then on this level it's the service room. In there you would traditionally have the curved cupboard made to fit the wall that housed the bulbs. It would have been originally mantles for the oil light. The green tube in the centre of the lighthouse room is hollow and used to house a weight on a wire that, slowly descending down through the tube, turned a clockwork motor upstairs that drove the lens around. Up in the lantern room, the lens that you see in front of you weighs many tons, made of glass and phosphor bronze. The rollers you see don't actually take the weight at all. They're only there to guide and keep the lens in position. The lens is actually floating in a trough of mercury, or quicksilver as the Americans call it. There are 2 electric motors to drive the lens around. 1 on, the other is standby. Everything in the lighthouse has a redundancy, as they say. Always a backup. This is me just turning the lens by hand. And you can turn this with just your little finger. It's that easy. Inside this lens is a 3 bulb lamp changer, 1 on, 1 a standby, and 1 emergency battery bulb. Once again, if anything happens to a bulb, if it fails, it automatically triggers the mechanism to flick round and put the next bulb in position and light it. The curtains are up during the day to stop the sun shining through the magnifying parts of the lens, which otherwise may melt things or start fires.